Without memory, there is no culture. Without memory, there would be no civilization, no society, no future. Those are spoken by Elie Wiesel. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. In the past, we have had a service for our war dead. It seems such a worthy thing, but somehow it just doesn't mean very much. I personally believe that honoring our dead should be a more personal thing, rather than the more abstract, patriotic thing that we always do. In this endeavor, I have modified Pericles' funeral oration in hopes of rekindling the pride and honor that is due to those who gave everything so that we can live as we do. Since our history has set the seal on this practice, we shall endeavor to appropriately honor our dead. We will speak first of our ancestors, for it is right and seemingly that now, when we are lamenting the dead, a tribute should be paid to their memory. There has never been a time when they did not inhabit this land, which, by their valor, they will have handed down from generation to generation, and we have received from them a free state. But if they were worthy of praise, still more were our fathers, who added to their inheritance, and after many a struggle, transmitted to us, their sons, this great country. And we, who are assembled here today, are mostly in the vigor of our lives, have carried the work of improvement further, and have richly endowed our country with all things, so that she is sufficient for herself, both in peace and war. Of the military exploits by which our various possessions have been acquired, or the energy with which we or our fathers drove back the tides of war, I will not speak, for the tale would be long, and it is familiar to all of you. But before we praise the dead, we should like to point out by what principles of action we rose to power. Next slide. And under what institutions and through what manner of life our country became great. For I conceive that such thoughts are not unsuited to the occasion, and that this assembly of friends and strangers may profitably listen to them. Our form of government does not enter into rivalry with other institutions of others. Our government does not copy our neighbors, but is an example to them. It is true that we are called to democracy, for the administration is in the hands of many and not of the few. But while there exists equal justice to all and alike in their private disputes, the claim of excellence is always recognized. And when a citizen in any way is distinguished, he is preferred to the public service, not as a privilege, but as a reward of merit. Neither is poverty an obstacle, but one may benefit this country, whatever the obscurity of their condition. There is no exclusiveness in our public life, and our private business. We are not suspicious of one another, nor angry with our neighbors. If they do not do what they do not do what we like. We do not put on sour looks at them, which, though harmless and not pleasant. And we are thus unconstrained in our private business. A spirit of reverence pervades our public acts. We are prevented from doing wrong by respect for our authorities, particularly for those in public safety who are charged with the protection of the injured, as well as those unwritten laws which bring about upon the transgressor of the injured the reprobation of the general sentiment. We have not forgotten to provide for our weary spirits. We have many relaxations from toil. We have baseball, we have football, we have entertainments of all sorts throughout the year. Our homes are beautiful and elegant, and the delight which we daily feel in all of these things helps to banish sorrow. Because of the greatness of our country, the fruits of the whole earth flow in upon us, so that we may enjoy the goods of other countries as freely as our own. We have compelled every land and every sea to open a path for our valor, and have everywhere planted such eternal memorials of our friendship and enmity. Such is the country for whose sake many have nobly fought and died. They could not bear the thought that she might be taken from them, and every one of us who survive shall gladly toil on her behalf.
We have dwelt upon the greatness of our country because we want to show you that we are contending for a higher prize than those who enjoy none of these privileges, and to establish by manifest truth the merit of these heroes whom we are now commemorating. Their loftiest praise has been already spoken, for in magnifying our country we have magnified them, and those like them whose virtues made her glorious. And of how few of us can it be said of them that their deeds, when weighed in the balance, have been found equal to their fame. I believe that a death such as theirs has been the true measure of one's worth. It may be the first revelation of their virtues, but is at any rate their final seal. For even those who come short in other ways may justly plead the valor with which they have fought for their country. They have blotted out the evil with the good and have benefited the state more by their public services than they have injured her by their private actions. None of these heroes were weakened by wealth or hesitated to resign the pleasures of life. None of them put off the evil day in the hope, natural to poverty, that one, though poor, may one day become rich, but deeming that the punishment of their enemies was sweeter than any of these things, and that they could fail in no nobler cause, they determined at the hazard of their lives to be honorably avenged, and to leave the rest. They resigned to hope their unknown chance of happiness, but in the face of death, they resolved to rely upon themselves alone. And when the moment came, they were minded to resist and suffer, rather than to fly and save their lives. They ran away from the word of dishonor, but on the battlefield, their feet stood fast, and in an instant, at the height of their fortune, they passed away from the scene, not of their fear, but of their glory. Such was the end of these heroes. They were worthy of America, and the living need not desire to have a more heroic spirit, although they may pray for a less fatal issue. The value of such a spirit is not to be expressed in words. Anyone can talk to you forever about the advantages of a brave defense, which you already know. But instead of listening to him, I would have you day by day fix your eyes upon the greatness of America until you become filled with her love of her. And when you are impressed by the spectacle of her glory, reflect that this country has been acquired by those who knew their duty and had the courage to do it, who in the hour of conflict had the fear of dishonor always present to them, and who, if ever they failed in enterprise, would not allow their virtues to be lost to the country, but freely gave their lives to her as the fairest offering which they present at her feasts.
The sacrifice which they collectively made was individually repaid to them, for they received again, each one for himself, a praise which grows not old, and the noblest of tombs. I speak not of that in which their remains are laid, but of that in which their glory survives, and is proclaimed always and on every fitting occasion, both in word and deed. For the whole earth is the tomb of famous heroes. Not only are they commemorated by columns and inscriptions in their own country, but in foreign lands there dwells also an unwritten memorial of them, graven not on stone, but in the hearts of men. Make them your examples, and think of courage to be freedom, and freedom to be happiness, and do not dwell on the perils of war. The unfortunate who had no hope of a change for the better has less reason to throw away his life than the prosperous, who, if they survive, is always liable to a change for the worse, and to whom any accidental fall makes the most serious difference. To one of spirit, cowardice and disaster coming together are far more bitter than death striking him unperceived at a time when they are full of courage and animated by general hope. Wherefore I do not now pity the parents of the dead. I would rather comfort them. You know that your dead have passed away amid multifold vicissitudes, and that they may be deemed fortunate who have gained their utmost honor, whether an honorable death like theirs or an honorable sorrow like yours, and whose share of happiness has been so ordered that the term of their happiness is likewise the term of their life. I know how hard it is to make you feel this, when the good fortune of others will too often remind you of the gladness of others, of gladness which once lightened your heart. And sorrow is felt at the want of those blessings, one we never knew, but which were a part of our life before they were taken from us. America crowns her veterans, living and dead, after a struggle. For where the rewards of virtue are greatest, there the noblest citizens are enlisted in the service of the state. I have a quote from Emily Potter. Heroes never die. They live forever in the hearts and minds of those who follow in their footsteps.